According to Democracy Perceptions Index, Chinese folks are more likely to say that democracy is important than that of my country or yours as well, the UK. So, in your opinion, in the two sessions just passed recently, which is a consultative body where the NPC, the National People's Congress, and the CPPCC, which you mentioned, meet. What are the strengths of China's consultative model, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, to some degree, it sort of this reaches into the previous question as well. But I think, as I say, Chinese people enjoy a far more substantive democracy, and that's reflected in the fact that Chinese people, by and large, are extremely happy with their government. I live in a country where the approval rating for the government is, I think, just about in double digits. It's like maybe 12 or 13%. But
Wow.
yeah, I mean, it's incredibly low. Like, people hate the government. If you were to spark up a conversation with someone in a coffee shop about what they thought of the present government, and they said, "Well, I think the government's doing a really good job, and people's lives are getting better," I mean, you would encourage them to seek urgent help. But I mean, it simply wouldn't happen. So it's a hypothetical situation. Whereas the Chinese government's approval rating is extremely high. I think the latest report by the Harvard Kennedy School, which is hardly could hardly be accused of being some kind of agent of the Communist Party of China, according to that, the latest surveys, Chinese people approve of the government at the rate of around 93-94%, right? So, as I said, the NPC, the CPPCCC are active at every level. Anyone who's interested in politics can get involved with those. And they have real power to influence real policy. And I think one interesting example that, a few years ago now, and we talk about it less, but if you look at the process of responding to COVID-19, how local governments in China were able to mobilize resources and coordinate with the central government, how they were able to listen to the people and adjust the policies accordingly, and how that was reflected at the obviously macro level that we know about, but also the micro level. How you had branches of the CPC in individual apartment buildings, literally going door to door to find out what people's needs are. Are there people in the building that need dialysis, that need transport arranged to the hospital to get that dialysis? Are there people who don't have access to fresh vegetables, etc.? How do we get their fresh vegetables? So you have democratic systems that people are engaging with in their daily lives, which is, again, very, very different from the West, where democracy is something that, it just means, as I cited Marx a few minutes ago, it just means voting every few years to decide which group of politicians, which faction of the bourgeoisie is going to oppress and repress you. You can look at the development of the 5-year plans. Obviously, China is about to launch on the 15th 5-year plan. And the process of developing that plan has been one of months and years, right, of involving literally millions of people feeding their ideas into what China's economic plan should be for the next 5 years. And if you look at like what the government's response has been in terms of public concerns in relation to pollution, in relation to housing difficulties, in relation to education reform, healthcare reform, and so on, it's clear that this is a very responsive democratic system that takes the interests and the expressed needs of the people very, very seriously, and that does that essentially through following, it's not described in those terms anymore, but it's essentially a modern and a kind of professionalized and bureaucratized manifestation of what Mao Zedong called the mass line, right? He was describing the mode of work of an effective communist party. And he described that as the party goes to the people, discusses with them, consolidates, collates their ideas, synthesizes those into policy and into strategy, and then goes back to the people to disseminate that, right? And I think modern Chinese governance is that at a enormous scale, and ultimately, as we say in Britain, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. China's government is responding to the actual needs of the Chinese people. Like, what are the priorities? What are the biggest priorities of government? They're making people's lives better. Poverty alleviation. What capitalist government has done what China's government has done in terms of poverty alleviation, or the development of renewable energy and biodiversity protection and pollution reduction and forestation, etc., etc., meeting the needs of people and planet. So, yeah, I think that probably more or less sums up how China's consultative democracy works.